Querida. Roxanne was the happiest girl you've ever seen. From the moment she was born, the sparkle in her eyes and her infectious giggle brought joy into whatever room she entered. Querida, my precious one, was what her papa always called her. She seemed to know exactly what that meant as his gentle voice held her close to his heart. Well, Roxy, which is what everyone else called her, started school somewhere between 4 and 5, and she loved it. Her teachers would marvel at how quickly she learned the lessons and how easily she made friends. She seemed to seek out the lonely ones and bring them into groups, making sure that everybody had a chance to smile and laugh. The one person in her life that didn't smile or laugh was her older brother, Emile. He resented how dear she was to their papa, even though papa tried and tried to hold his son close to his heart as well. Emile always felt that she was the preferred one. So anger and jealousy were generally what he brought into whatever room he entered. And school? Let's just say that his teachers had a difficult time teaching him anything, and he hung around a few other guys who felt the same. One day, Emile heard one of his friends say something that made him genuinely laugh out loud. His friend said somebody was as dumb as a box of rocks. Emile couldn't wait to see his sister after school and lay that one on her. Sure enough, as soon as they got on the bus together to head home, he called out, "Hey, Roxy, you're as dumb as a box of rocks." And he and his friends in the back of the bus hooted and howled like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. "Box of Roxy, box of Roxy, boxy Roxy," they sing-song chanted on and on all the way home. Well, Roxy was so hurt that she started crying, which of course delighted her brother and just cheered the chorus on. And Boxy became his new favorite name for her. Roxy really tried not to let her brother bother her, but truthfully, she always kind of doubted whether she was as dear as her papa made her sound. So some of the taunting took root. And as her brother's cruelty coincided with puberty, her self-doubts came to full bloom. Her moods became much more sullen. She responded less and less to the love of her parents and the praise of her teachers. It all rang kind of hollow as she thought she knew herself better than any of them. A dark cloud began to separate her from the friends and the happiness that had identified her for years. The difference became quite dramatic over the next couple of years. Her papa still called her Querida, but the sound of his voice grew faint in her mind compared to her brother's assessment, Boxy. She neglected school, neglected her friends, started eating lots of junk food just to feel better. Eventually, she found a group of older girls who let her drink some wine and have the occasional drag off one of their cigarettes and laugh together at all the weirdos at school. It wasn't until 10th grade when her English lit teacher asked her a question about a novel they'd been assigned. Roxy's sarcastic response made the class laugh, but instead of getting angry, the teacher said, "I like that. Not the rudeness of your attitude, but the boldness and clarity of your answer." Well, it had been a long time since one of her teachers said something positive about her, and the teacher's next comment took her completely by surprise. "You've got what we used to call moxie," she said, seemingly without highlighting the obvious connection to her name. "And you should join the debate team," was her pronouncement. Well, as much as Roxy put off the idea, her teacher would not take no for an answer. So she did finally show up at a practice. "Great!" her teacher exclaimed. Team, this is Roxy, but I'll be calling her Moxie because of her boldness and sharp wit. There was something about this teacher's confidence in her and her constantly calling her Moxie that kind of spurred something that had been hiding for a long time. Roxy embraced her role on that team and became a tireless researcher who began to win every debate she ever entered. The team actually went on to win districts, and then finally they won state for the first time in school history. During the course of all this new focus, Roxy had less and less time to hang out with her new friends after school, which in itself helped to lessen the cloud that she had allowed to separate her from things that she no longer believed about herself. And other things began to happen in the midst of this lessening. One thing was that she began to vaguely notice her papa's voice as he continued to call her his Querida. Another thing was she noticed her junk food, wine, and cigarette diet was taking a toll on her appearance. She hated how she looked in the mirror and decided to make some changes. She asked her phys ed teacher to help her with some exercises, and the fierceness that she applied to her exercise routines impressed her teacher so much that she invited her to join the basketball team. I mean, this is in the most complimentary way, her teacher told her, but I see a lot of jock in you, Roxy. And yes, during her very first practice, the coach started to playfully throw out the nickname Joxy, which made her laugh and combined with her debate team success, brought a little more clearing of the clouds that had been holding her back for so long. As you can probably now anticipate, her efforts on the basketball team brought a level of scoring and team unity that team had never known. That's how Roxy's last couple of years of high school began to fill a few shelves with trophies of total transformation. Emil had now gone on to college and was himself dramatically different from the bully brother she had battled. Through a series of scrapes with other students and teachers and even the law, he finally began to believe that Papa loved him. And that belief uncovered a lot of things that had been hiding in him for a very long time. And now that bully brother had become one of Roxy's biggest fans. And the thought of her going to prom without any advice from him? Unthinkable. I'll need to screen whoever asks you to prom to make sure he's not a dirtbag, he pronounced. Nobody's going to ask me to prom, Roxy demurred. Are you kidding? He corrected her. You're one of the hottest girls in school. You'll never hear me say this again, he confided, but the latest nickname I hear for you is Foxy. So like I said, I'll be screening. And though her brother never did repeat it, we can safely assume that nickname was often whispered behind the back of the new reigning prom queen. So Roxy went on to graduate college, and she decided to start a business. She took the story of Roxy, Boxy, Moxie, Joxy, and even Foxy to middle schools, high schools, and corporations, and challenged people to look for the best in others and to call that out in them. Create a culture of confidence. Engage in an environment of encouragement. We've all been called names, she'd point out, but it's up to us to decide who we believe. I found out that I needed help to navigate the negative and keep coming back to the promise of the positive. And if you listen real close, I think everybody here will hear the sweet, gentle sound of Querida.